Hello, and welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show, a podcast to help you unlock tremendous growth for your app. My name is Shamant Rao. I'm the CEO of the boutique growth marketing firm Rocketship HQ and host of the podcast Mobile User Acquisition Show. In each episode, we feature experts in the field of mobile growth and discuss strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile growth marketing. By the end of each episode, you will have gained actionable and tactical insights that will help you make more informed decisions in your own work around growth. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is produced by Meryl Vincent, Content Marketing Manager at Rocketship HQ.
Today's is a very unique episode. I have with me two amazing guests to offer two very different perspectives about a theme that I've always been very fascinated by: influencer marketing and the economics of internet fame. Sophia Ye, also known as Sophia Beatbox or Sophia Kid Beats, is a YouTuber, influencer manager, and the former CMO of the YouTube video company Most Amazing. Sophia literally grew up with YouTube. She started making videos in high school and really took off on the YouTube platform as a teenager, making these really cool beatboxing videos. After growing her presence on YouTube for a number of years, she moved over to the business side of influencer marketing in helping influencers strike deals with brands, and she eventually became the CMO of the company Most Amazing. Adam Hadi is the VP of Marketing at Current and is known as one of the foremost experts in the world at influencer marketing, particularly for mobile apps. Adam made his way into mobile app marketing for the Tops company, in which capacity he stumbled upon the wild world of influencer marketing. With Sophia and Adam, between the two of them, bring very unique perspectives on influencer marketing, on what it's like to be an influencer, on what it takes to grow an audience as an influencer, on the unique and peculiar challenges of being a creator as well as a business person, on how deals are made on influencer marketing platforms, and so much more. I'm very excited to welcome Sophia Ye and Adam Hadi to How Things Grow. Sophia, Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Shamant.
Absolutely, guys. You know, you both have had very interesting and unexpected paths to where you are now. Before we jump into the wonderful world of influencers that we're going to talk about, I would very much like to explore your paths. Sophia, you started making YouTube videos when you were in 10th grade. This was 2007. What inspired you to do this?
So back in high school, I was bullied, so I didn't really have many friends. So I would stay home and practice beatboxing, and music was my getaway from all the negativity. It's what brought me up. So I was beatboxing, and there was a talent show at my high school, and I was practicing really hard for it, and my brother would be helping me on it. And the day before it was supposed to be the talent show, it got canceled. So I was pretty disappointed, but my brother suggested that there's this platform called YouTube. You can just post your videos on there. So I just did my performance in my bedroom with poor quality, and then I just posted 4 different videos at the same time, and YouTube picked it up, and it went off into thousands, then the 100,000s, and the millions of views.
No way. And those were your first 4 videos. That must have been unexpected for somebody who was bullied. That might have felt like sweet revenge for you.
Because everybody at school didn't believe anything, didn't believe I had talent, didn't believe. I would practice every single second of my life at school, and they were so annoyed. So I guess that practice paid off.
What was the path like from that point when you posted your first videos on YouTube to what you do right now?
So I took videography class in high school, and making videos was basically my life back then. And then I went into filmmaking and media production in college, and then that's what made me have this passion for YouTube.
Yeah, so it sounds like YouTube opened up a path for you that you hadn't quite anticipated or seen. And Adam, you had a very different path to the world of influencers and YouTube and all the cool stuff that we will dive into very soon. Tell us about what your path was to the world of influencer marketing.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I was also bullied as a kid.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Much less inspirational story than that. I was doing user acquisition for Topps Digital. Topps Digital is, you may be aware of the Topps company, the old American trading card company. They launched a digital division maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I noticed in doing work for our soccer app, I was actually running our Twitter campaigns and noticed that our best performing Twitter campaigns were these FIFA related accounts. I had no idea what they were at the time. But as I kind of dug into them, I was like, oh, these are people who are posting videos of FIFA on YouTube. That's literally the language I was thinking of at the time. And I was really naive. I was very new to the world of user acquisition and marketing in general. So I just naively was like, oh, well, I'll reach out to them and see if they want to talk about Topps Kick. And really, it was just kind of perfect timing. It was like lightning in a bottle. That product was a really perfect product for YouTube at the time and for these FIFA influencers. It just kind of took off from there. We grew our DAU 10x over the course of maybe 4 months with CPAs that were literally a magnitude lower. Again, it was a perfect time, perfect product, perfect market. For a lot of these influencers, I was their first sponsor. It's really what kicked it off.
Interesting. Until that point, like you said, you'd been managing user acquisition. And prior to that, I know, and you didn't explicitly get into this, prior to that, you were actually looking at economic data. So what was your first impression when you saw all of these people who were posting FIFA videos on YouTube? What did you think when you first stumbled upon these guys?
I mean, I was very, very naive. I did not enter this world, into this universe organically as a fan. This was all very, very new to me. And to be honest, the entire market was naive at that point. Influencer marketing wasn't a term. Outside of maybe a couple of hardcore gaming companies, there weren't really many sponsors on YouTube at the time. And so for me, it was this combination where for the influencers, it made a ton of sense because our app, Topps Kick, was new content for them. These are people who are posting about FIFA every day, and they're starved for new content. And so FIFA, our app really provided that. So they were willing to do these promotions at a really cost-effective rate because for them, it was just good content. And then obviously for us, there was this huge opportunity of a lower CAC, a lower cost of acquisition, along with a really engaged and highly educated consumer coming in, right? Because they had a much stronger onboarding than they would have otherwise experienced via traditional advertising.
Right. And as you expressed it, it was lightning in a bottle. It just seemed like the perfect match, just marketing-wise, and it just seemed so seamless for just the users, and it wasn't quite anything like the ads that they had seen in the past.
Yes, the economist in me loved that.
Exactly.
There was a lot of surplus to be had.
Excellent. I will pretend to know what you mean by that. But okay, so Sophia, when you made your first YouTube video in high school, YouTube was just like 2 years old, and you continued to make videos through college, as you mentioned, and you make them even today. And at what point did you see that YouTube wasn't just like a hobbyist platform? It wasn't just like for the nerds to put up things that they were really passionate about, but it could actually be a commercial opportunity for yourself as well as generally for a lot of creators that they could actually make serious money with. Was there a specific point where you saw this actually is a commercial opportunity?
So after my 6th video upload, 4 months into being on YouTube, I was offered the YouTube partner program. I was like, what? You can get paid on YouTube? And I was underage for the YouTube partner program, but we put it under my brother's name.
Yeah.
I was getting paid through my brother.
Right.
And so I was like, wow, you can make money on this. And I would get updates from my brother of how much I'm making each month. And I was like, wow, this is actually something you can make money off. I did not know that. And then a few years of uploading, I think 2 or 3 years of uploading, I got a sponsorship offer from Kellogg's Pop-Tarts. And they paid me a whole lot of money, and
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is actually something that could be a career, you know?
Yeah, and it so sounds like you have your brother to thank from a lot of what you're doing now, introducing you to YouTube and helping you get set up. You said you saw the interest from the YouTube folks for your sixth video, which is relatively early on, I would say. Did you get the sense at the time that the YouTube guys recognized the potential of the platform as a huge commercial opportunity at the time?
YouTube was handpicking like which influencers to be part of the partner program, and it was like very early on, and they just started the YouTube partner program where they would be paying people for putting ads in front of their videos.
So you were almost an early adopter of the YouTube program, and that got you in, and the YouTube guys were like, right, she's really running with this platform. Let's help her by helping her monetize the platform itself.
And I have YouTube to thank for all of that, because they tweeted my video and I freaked out when I was like 16.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's a good problem to have, but that can bring you an enormous amount of traffic. And Adam, you were looking at a lot of the FIFA influencers at the time, and you were like, look, these seem to be such a perfect fit for the game, for the playing cards that you're promoting, that you're driving marketing for. Was there a specific influencer that comes to mind, or was there a specific instance that comes to mind that you were like, oh, this is actually very cool and this could actually make sense?
Well, to be honest, it was the first one.
Oh, okay.
It was so successful that really right off the bat, some of these influencers I'm still working with today. So I can shout out Mini Minter. Mini Minter is one of my favorite influencers. He's a FIFA guy. I first sponsored him, I think, in 2015 maybe, and just sponsored him up maybe a month or two ago. And so he's somebody who evolved with the platform, really. His content used to be strictly FIFA focused, and kind of as the platform evolved, he got broader and broader. And now, while occasionally there might be some FIFA related content on his channel, he's much more just lifestyle.
Interesting. And we'll talk about how a lot of the influencers evolved further down the podcast. But it sounds like you and this guy and YouTube all helped each other grow over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I would specifically shout out KSI. KSI was the largest FIFA influencer at the time.
Yeah.
And he's one of the first ones at least to say, hey, like, this can be much bigger than just FIFA. Yeah. And in many ways, this can be much bigger than just YouTube. Yeah. You know, he's come out with tons of music. He was in a boxing match.
Whoa.
The guy's got his own show. I mean, it goes on and on and on. This guy, I specifically remember with him, him and his crew, which are called the Sidemen, Mini Minter is actually one of them, they were visiting PAX East in Boston.
What is that?
PAX, it's like a gaming conference.
Okay.
And so this was kind of a gathering for a bunch of YouTubers in this, especially sports YouTubers at the time. And I had hunted him down. I was like stalking him essentially on Twitter to get in touch with him, because I'd been able to reach a lot of other folks, but I hadn't been able to reach him. And I'd bought an iPad mini using Topps' expensive budget, that is. I bought an iPad mini, downloaded Topps Kick, loaded it on there. And then when I finally found him at the conference, I gave it to him. And I remember him saying, got me a mini. That's my best British accent as well. But that got his attention, and eventually did go live with a video with him. But that's kind of where I started. I wish I had that much hustle now.
That's crazy. I mean, you traveled all the way to Boston to track this guy down and make the deal work with him, which is also impressive because it sounds like you had just about stumbled upon and were figuring out influencer marketing yourself, but you really seem to have the conviction that made you just really chase these guys down.
I credited it mostly being naive. I think a certain level of naiveness really, really can take you far.
Absolutely. Naive and enthusiastic, and you were convinced at some level. And Sophia, just coming to you, a lot of influencers start off small. They start with a couple of tens of followers. Maybe it's their friends and family and their mom and their dog. What takes an influencer from, let's say, the first handful of followers, that could be friends and family, to their first couple of 100 followers? What are the typical things that drive an influencer's early growth?
I think the main key is to be consistent, because I learned the hard way I actually got way too busy with school and college, and then I took a break from YouTube for over a year.
Yeah.
And then my YouTube really died down after that. So after I graduated, I became friends with, well, I didn't become friends. I was already friends with a high school old friend. And he reached out to me because he knew I was doing YouTube and he wanted to grow his own YouTube channel. So he was growing it and I was seeing it throughout the years I was on YouTube. I was looking for a job actually after college, and the industry is like really hard to get into. So he just offered me like, do you want to edit some of my videos? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I worked with him for about 4 years editing his videos, and he created a lot of different channels, including this amazing Top 10, which now has 5.2 million subscribers. Now they are one of my clients for getting sponsorships.
Right. To the original question, it sounds like because these guys were posting consistently over time, they were able to grow.
Very consistent. I stopped being consistent, and that's how it died down.
You know, when you say somebody has to be consistent, how does that work on the YouTube platform? Let's say you post a video every week. How does that result in more followers?
It's just the YouTube algorithms pick up this particular channel, uploads this time and this day.
Yeah.
And so they can boost it into their YouTube algorithms and make it more searchable as well.
So the consistency is a factor in the algorithms as well, right? And let's say somebody's gone from the early friends and family to getting a reasonable amount of following. How does one go about going from a couple of hundreds of followers, posting relatively consistently, to making this economically viable and making this a full-time thing for themselves? What has to happen to make that shift for an influencer?
I think being very passionate about what you do on YouTube, never be tired of what you do on YouTube, and be very consistent, I guess, again. But yeah. But basically, you won't really, if you're working and YouTubing at the same time, you won't really have a social life. Take that time to like work on yourself.
Got it. It can be very demanding, as I can imagine, because once you see videos, you're like, oh, somebody just took a smartphone and spent 5 minutes. But it clearly looks like there's a lot of work that goes into just shooting a YouTube video. And we'll talk about that. But again, Adam, just switching over to you, you've seen and you've done deals with relatively small niche influencers that could perhaps charge a couple of $100 a post. And you've also worked with some massive YouTubers, some massive influencers who could make a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars per post. You talked about the FIFA guy who just started from having a personal brand that was just around FIFA and football, which being like a huge lifestyle brand. So he was into music, he had a boxing match, he had his own show. What do you think catalyzes that shift for a lot of influencers who do end up going big?
I should say I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of YouTubers. I should first say that I have 0 subscribers of my own. So this is not first-hand advice, but what I see themes across channels, I'd say influencers who are really eager to reinvest in their channel, or who aren't so focused on monetization from day one. Those tend to do really well over time. Those who are honest with their audience. I think that is really, really important. If you're building a dedicated audience over time, they'll know right away. They'll know when you're being dishonest. So I think you need to be genuine, honest, reinvest in your channel, be humble, and ultimately put in the work. It's not easy, which is why it's literally the equivalent of a young Adam Hadi being like, oh, I want to make it to the NBA. The odds of making it to 1 million subscribers on YouTube, it's about the same.
Yeah. And when you say this person has to be honest and this person has to really be passionate about what he does, let's take the example of your FIFA guy. So he's making videos about football, and one day he's like, guys, I'm going to do this boxing match. Is that not an abrupt transition for his followers? How does he sort of position it so as to seem authentic and honest for his followers?
I should say, if it did happen like that, it wouldn't, right? It wouldn't be super abrupt. But no, for him, it was a very long change. This was gradual and over time. What's important is that you get feedback from your audience. And in the case of a lot of these FIFA YouTubers, FIFA was just the gimmick. Their audience really liked them. They liked them and their personalities. The ones who were entirely dependent on FIFA the game, they really didn't survive nearly as well. A lot of those channels have shrunk, and a lot of them have died over time because the interest solely based on the game. But those whose interest was really in the personalities, those are the ones who are able to evolve. And so I think if you're properly reading your audience and listening to your audience, you can make those changes over time. But yeah, if every single day you're posting a video on makeup, and then you go and decide, oh, I'm going to post a video on pranking people in a parking lot, it's not going to work.
Right. So it's as much about who they are as a person, about their personal brand, as much as it is about FIFA or boxing or whatever they post about. And if they have that...
well, I should say with a lot of YouTubers, but every channel is different, right? I mean, if I'm into a vlogger, that may be why I subscribe. But if I'm into Star Wars, and that's the only thing I care about, and the channel is all about Star Wars, and then all of a sudden they start posting content on Star Trek, I might be like, hey, what the hell, guys, and unsubscribe. So there's a balance to be found there.
Right. So you know yourself and you know your audience, and you sort of read your audience. And yeah, I'm not going to pretend it's as simple as the 2 or 3 sentences that I just uttered there, but it sounds like that's a broad process that these guys use.
Clarify, I'm not going to pretend either. It's not something that I'm an expert in. It's just these are things I've noticed, after several hundred data points.
Absolutely. And I think this also ties into what Sophia said, which was that these guys have to be passionate. Sophia, you yourself, just how excited you are about beatboxing totally comes across in your videos. And I think that's absolutely a key ingredient, because if you're passionate, the viewers are like, yeah, she's cool. So even if she goes from beatboxing to something relatively unrelated, I'm going to follow along because she's kind of cool, and I'll keep watching. And I think that can certainly be the process that can happen.
Sure. I actually tried to test my audience to see if they were into like just vlogging without beatboxing, and they weren't. But if I did beatbox in my videos, they were all for that.
How did you test this?
I just posted like a vlog, and then the click rate wasn't very well, and like the people didn't really stay very long on the video. When I beatbox in my vlogs, they stayed. They were looking for the beatbox in the vlogs.
Right, and that ties into what Adam said, that you're still reading your audience. You're not just focusing on what you're strong at, but you're like, what do the people want? What do they think I'm good at? Right? Yeah, interesting. And Adam, I know you've seen a lot of genres. You've seen hundreds of influencers. Are there specific genres that you find resonate more with users and viewers than others, if indeed the success of a channel is genre dependent?
Yes, certainly. I think it changes over time, and it's really based on trends. What can be challenging is sustaining a trend after the trend is gone. In the last year, you've seen channels blow up almost overnight just based on Fortnite. So all they do is post Fortnite content. However, if you can't parlay that into something else, then you're going to live and die with Fortnite. And Fortnite's still extremely popular, and that's still a very sustainable way to manage a channel, but inevitably that's going to go away. And you see this trend after trend after trend. I think you can grow your channel on a trend, and I think that's fine, but eventually you have to make it your own.
Sure. Yeah, and you can certainly ride a wave. And speaking of which, Sophia, I'm curious. YouTube was certainly the first big influencer platform. You latched onto it. The guys you work with, most amazing top 10, they are very much on YouTube. They're only on YouTube.
They're on Instagram too, but they don't really grow it.
Exactly. Ever since YouTube started, and ever since Most Amazing started off, other platforms have come into play. Instagram, Snapchat, not to mention Twitch, TikTok. There are a bunch of them right now. There are also platforms like Vine, which came up, which saw creators produce content for, but which never really took off. So how do influencers decide whether to produce content for multiple platforms or just one?
I can't speak for all influencers, but for my personal experience, I've tried every single platform and to test which would go in a good direction. So Instagram is good for me, Facebook is good, and YouTube are all pretty good. It actually depends on who is on the platform and why they follow you on the platform for.
What do you mean by that? Who's on the platform and why they're following you? Can you elaborate?
So for YouTube, they want to see videos. So I beatbox and they want to see longer videos of me beatboxing. So YouTube is a good platform for that. And Instagram, I can also do videos on as well, but there's a minute. But I haven't tried IGTV yet, so I don't have anything to say about that yet.
Got it. So you're saying, look, does the format that is native to the platform resonate with the format that I'm good at? Right? And beatboxing tends to be relatively longer form, not like a 10-second clip, right? And therefore you're like, YouTube can be my strongest channel and let's just focus there.
Mm-hmm. Cool. For sure.
That ties into what both of you said earlier in terms of knowing yourself and knowing the audience, and of course, knowing the format that you're putting out into the world.
For sure.
And Adam, from a marketer's point of view, at what point of time does a new platform become viable for a marketer? So when do you decide the Snapchat thing is actually coming up? It could be a good platform for me to invest in, or wine's kind of dying down. Let's just get out of there.
Well, I think it's actually similar to Sophia's answer. I think it really depends on where your audience is, almost as much as timing. Like if you have an older audience, an audience that's above 35, let's say, your audience isn't on Snapchat. There's really nothing you can do about that. Snapchat won't be an effective channel for you, and that's honestly either with influencer marketing or conventional paid ads. So I think you really need to find where your audience lives. If you're talking about gamers, Twitch is going to be a much bigger deal for you. If talking lifestyle, Twitch, you could really struggle to make it work, but it's probably not going to be the best channel for you. YouTube is very, very broad. Still, it skews younger. So, I talk to a lot of different folks in the space who are trying to enter and hear about influencer marketing. They're like, oh, this is the next great thing. You really need to find where those influencers are. If your target audience is 40 to 60-year-old females, they're probably not on YouTube, right? You need to find where they are.
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Sounds like you have to get the right audience. It doesn't matter how big the audience is. But is there a certain critical mass of number of users at which a platform becomes viable to even look at or start exploring as an influencer platform?
I don't know if there's a specific number, but having sponsored people on Musical.ly 2-3 years ago, while it's still a fairly small platform, I saw strong results.
How small?
If that platform isn't smaller than the product I'm advertising, then there's enough people there to make it work.
How small was it at the time in terms of numbers? Are there numbers that you can remember?
I think they were probably at maybe like 25 to 50 million DAU.
Okay.
Obviously, that's a large number, but not really compared to where they are now. TikTok, well, Musical.ly obviously evolved into TikTok, and they were the #1 most downloaded app of 2018.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Again, I was advertising a product that was appropriate for people on Musical.ly at the time. It was a very, very young platform, and still is with TikTok.
Right. And Sophia, you talked a little while ago about how you considered doing videos that weren't about beatboxing, and Adam a while ago spoke about how his FIFA guy gradually branched out into other genres. And also the guys you work with at Most Amazing, they have a bunch of channels. I would imagine they started with one. So is there a research process that typically goes into understanding what we should do next, how we should expand? And you could certainly take the example of Most Amazing and how you guys went about expanding into the other channels. I'm curious if you can speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. So we started the channel very broad, top 10 cars or something. Then we went into shocking things, and a lot more people would be wanting to watch more shocking things instead of just boring cars or something, because our audience is more 18 to 34. So we have people who research into the YouTube algorithm to see what is our audience looking for in our channel and what do they like. So they like our hosts, first of all, Danny and Rebecca and Landon, the 3 main hosts on the channel. They fell in love with them, and then when they talk about like dumbest tweets or scary stuff, that's when we found out that there's a lot of people on the channel and our subscribers would want to watch that stuff.
So it sounds like much like you did with your non-beatboxing video, and you guys are basically reading your audience with every video you put out. You're basically doing customer research, although that's probably too nerdy a term. Probably don't call it that, but you're really trying to understand where do we go next, and that's what informs what you launch next.
For sure. Titling a video a certain way with keywords that YouTube would pick up and like boost for us. And we would try to capitalize on that.
Right. Yeah, in a certain sense, every video you put out is an A/B test for what could work and what couldn't.
For sure. Yeah. Every upload's a gamble, basically.
Yeah. When you say it's a gamble, I would imagine after having put in so many videos, you would have noticed some elements that are common to the videos that really, really blow up versus those that don't. What might some of these elements be?
So
that's a secret sauce.
I won't tell anyone.
It also depends on the thumbnails of the videos. Our channel's a little bit clickbaity, but the titles is what draws people in, and the hosts is what make the people stay. So if they click on a video and they don't like the host, they click out of the video right away.
Right. So it's the team, and it's the thumbnail and the host, and as Adam said, it's the secret sauce, which I'll hopefully ascertain before the end of our recording from you guys.
In my opinion, by the way, there's nothing wrong with being clickbaity. You just have to be able to follow through with the bait. Right.
Right. Absolutely. And if you have something that's truly amazing or truly shocking, and you say it's the most amazing thing that brings people in, and you deliver on it, I can see why you guys have a couple million subscribers right now. So Adam, when you're looking at some people like Most Amazing Top 10, or if you're looking to work with somebody like Sophia, who's just a huge beatboxer, or somebody who's very specialized, how do you vet them to ascertain whether this can work for a brand or an advertiser?
That's probably one of the most challenging things about influencer marketing is when you haven't done anything in the space, and then you need to decide, what is my audience? Where is my audience? What's the proper channel? And spoken from a perspective of a performance marketer, when essentially you have no raw data to base your decisions of, we get pretty scared, right? This isn't something where it's like, oh, okay, let me test a small little ad campaign here, this ad campaign here, and then you compare click-through rates and install rates and etc. It's difficult. I would say this is when you need to step back a bit and really think about who your customer is and who your customer is and who are these viewers of a video. Now, YouTube gives infamously bad demographic data. If you try to ascertain the age of a channel based on the information that YouTube provides that channel, it's really, really difficult. For one, a lot of people watch on different people's devices. You'll have a kid watching on a parent's device. Especially with younger channels, a lot of content on YouTube is age-gated. So younger YouTube viewers will just create a new account and say they're older. So there's a lot of challenges. If you are interested in age, I find that browser type, whether you're viewing on mobile or viewing on desktop, that's a much better indicator of age than actual demographics on YouTube. It's a decision that you can't just make looking at data, right? You have to look at the channel, look at the comments, watch the content. You really need to put in a bit of effort to understand what it's about. That's assuming you understand your own customer. A lot of people need to be maybe a little bit more open-minded about who their customer can be. But at the end of the day, you have to take the plunge and try a few new things. And then as you see what gains traction and what doesn't, you can then make decisions. But I find that probably more often people jump to conclusions that they shouldn't necessarily be jumping to based on something working or not working.
Got it. So you really dive into the channels because the data is so imperfect. You dive into the channels, you look at the comments, you try to ascertain whether it's a good fit for your client, much in the same way that Sophia spoke about how she does customer research, so to speak, on the channel itself. But again, you have worked with hundreds of influencers, and I would imagine to vet them, you would have to study a multiple of those influencers. So how do you manage to do that without basically watching videos all day long?
basically over the course of 5 years.
Okay, so you watch a lot of videos.
There's shortcuts you can take maybe, but outside of that, it's a lot of work. I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people and brands kind of come into the influencer marketing space all of a sudden. You see them sponsoring a bunch of things and then they just kind of disappear. You've seen that a lot over the years, and there's far fewer sustainable brands who are doing this in a smart ROI positive way because it's really, really difficult. There are brands doing that. It's just hard work.
Yeah, and you have to play the long game, and oftentimes playing that long game means you have to watch a lot of this stuff. You have to understand both the influences and the market you're catering to. And you spoke about, how the data is so imperfect, how the data is so broken. And earlier this year, you wrote an article titled, "Is 2019 the year that influencer marketing grows up?" And by the way, I find that title kind of astonishing because influencer marketing has been around for close to a decade, if not more, and yet the data is broken, like you said. And in that article you wrote, there's a strong chance that in 2019, a major social platform, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, or Snapchat, fully embraces influencer marketing by providing influencers and sponsors full access to the tools available to advertisers on the native ad platforms today. This includes tools such as attribution, particularly view-through attribution, native CTA buttons, audience data, retargeting capabilities. So why do you think it's taken the platforms so long to build tools to cater to influencers when they're built very, very sophisticated tools that cater to advertisers and brands, and they've been very forward thinking in that regard?
Well, to be honest, I'm actually surprised that they've been able to move as fast as they have in the most recent years. You're talking about a potential disruption to a $50 billion business or $100 billion business in a year. If you work at Google, you can look at me and somebody who's sponsoring influencers directly and view me as direct competition to conventional advertising on your platform. Here's somebody who is paying somebody on our platform thousands of dollars to advertise a product, and we're not getting a single piece of that pie. When that's why we exist. Google exists to serve ads, right? And so that's one perspective on it. Now, on the other perspective, depending on where you work in Google, you love me. You love Adam for sponsoring content on their platform, right? Yeah, I'm enabling and encouraging YouTubers to create good content on their platform. Now, it's not surprising that the first part of that argument was a lot stronger a few years back, and only really recently when all these platforms have really begun to appreciate the content and the influencers on their platform and how much that's worth, that the shift has kind of begun to, hey, actually, let's embrace this direct influencer sponsorships, because in the fight for content, if they can make their platform a valuable place for their own influencers to post, they retain that content. You have companies like Snapchat, especially a few years back, were investing literally hundreds of millions of dollars into content on their platform. And meanwhile, they were completely ignoring the influencers on their platform and not really giving them any tools to, one, grow, and tools for advertisers like myself to sponsor them. And I think they've come to now realize that that was a mistake, and that the content that they've wanted for this platform has existed on it all along. It's not bringing in content from old traditional media companies onto the platform. It's a content that's native right there. And so Vine is a great example of this. All these influencers who are really big on Vine back in this heyday, they very seamlessly took their audiences to YouTube. And now they're some of the biggest YouTubers on that platform. And ultimately, these influencers control their audience in almost as well as the platforms do. So there's a bit of a balance there. So I think the platforms have recognized that, hey, by enabling advertisers to sponsor influencers directly on our platform, we're just increasing the quality of content on our platform. And I think that has outweighed maybe a small negative effect on traditional advertising. And then I should say, it's not for an advertiser like me, it's really not an either or decision, right? Like I work mostly with mobile ads, so I run my Google UAC ads, right? I run my YouTube ads, I run my Instagram ads, I run my Facebook ads. I do all these things anyways, alongside my influencer marketing. So it's not like it's a either or thing. It's certainly not a zero-sum game.
Got it. Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of the platforms have been increasingly open to, so to speak, the open source nature of content creation that the influencer economy symbolizes.
They're making progress. They're not quite where they need to be, but they're all making progress.
So, Adam, you said these companies aren't quite there. Why the hesitation at this point on the company's part?
I think when you talk about these revenues in terms of many billions of dollars, it's really hard to make a decision that can possibly adversely affect that.
Yeah.
Now, YouTube has been really progressive on this front in that they actually purchased FameBit. This was back in 2017. It's an influencer platform to match brands with influencers. So technically speaking, Google itself now owns a piece of the pie. If I do a deal on FameBit, Google is getting 20%. It's not the 40% cut they might be getting on a conventional ad, but they certainly still own a piece of the pie.
Right. Yeah. So it's just taking a bit of time for them to really understand and just keep moving forward and integrate what's going on here.
Yeah, I think as another example, if you look at Snapchat, if I'm an influencer on Snapchat, historically speaking, only way I can make money is through sponsored posts. And really, the same goes for Instagram. And so if you're talking about this epic battle between these two platforms, trying to steal users from each other, if I'm an influencer, where's my motivation to gain a following on Snapchat versus Instagram versus YouTube? And today, we can include Twitch in that mix. It's far easier to make money on YouTube or Twitch than it is on Instagram or Snapchat. And so you see that bear out in a lot of the data.
Got it. Yeah. And Sophia, speaking about the tools that aren't quite present, the data that isn't quite present, but that we hopefully see coming in to place later this year or sometime soon, how do you feel about the current availability of tools for influencers? And how do you think the increasing proliferation of tools is going to affect you and the companies you work with as influencers?
I think the tools on each platform keeps updating every day. So influencers have to learn the platform all over again and see, because YouTube has changed every few years and their algorithms always change. So we always have to keep up with it.
What's an example of an algorithm change that you had to keep up with?
Well, the big one is the adpocalypse.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
I can add a bit of color commentary on this one. Adpocalypse was, I wouldn't really call it a phenomenon. It was all related to, I believe it was Wall Street Journal a couple years back reporting on how these advertisers, big advertisers, Fortune 500 advertisers, were running ads along all types of negative content on YouTube. So these are hate videos, yada, 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 yada. There was a huge pushback on behalf of these brands. Google's reaction was very swift. They really pulled back on advertising on a lot of channels, which dramatically lowered CPMs and dramatically lowered the amount of money that many YouTubers made. And content that was previously acceptable all of a sudden was now unacceptable. A lot of this happened purely algorithmically, and so some of it made sense and was legitimate. Other was just complete nonsense. People's videos being demonetized for no sensible reason that a human would ever see. And so this has been something that YouTube has been struggling for a couple of years. And recently, a lot of YouTubers are now having their videos demonetized because of a record label will claim, hey, they played 3 seconds of my music. And then the record then claims all ad revenue on that video going forward. So these are challenges that YouTubers constantly have to deal with that aren't really under their control. Yeah,
that being said, influencers have to make it advertiser friendly now, all content advertiser friendly to make it more monetizable. So we would have to change titles or change thumbnails, delete some videos, or it was a very drastic change on YouTube. YouTube was picking up random words on titles or descriptions. The word gay was the controversy because they would demonetize the word gay, but it was a friendly title.
Yeah. And when you say demonetize, does that mean that if you had the word gay in the title, the CPM would be much lesser than a video which didn't have the word gay? Is that what would happen?
No, it just cuts out the entire monetization. So it would get paid $0.
Oh, dang. Yeah. So, and you guys had a fairly elaborate setup. You guys have a team that's putting out content, so you see a very abrupt drop in your revenues just because you just put in a word that you didn't even know was triggering all the algorithms.
Yeah, it just happened very suddenly.
Right.
And on top of that, when a video gets demonetized, YouTube no longer has the incentive to promote it.
Right.
And so it essentially just dies right in the water.
It deranks your channel as well.
How did you deal with it, Sophia? When you were like, oh, I just put in this very innocuous word and I'm not making any money. Clearly, we just made way less money this month compared to last month, and we have bills to pay. How do you deal with that?
So for a while, you couldn't really contact YouTube, and then now you can contact YouTube or like request for review. So you have to go into the back end of your channel and you have to request for review, and they would review your video and decide if it's ad friendly or not friendly.
Got it. But at the time when you were like, oh, our revenues are tanking, was there anything, what did you guys do?
We had to cut hours.
Yeah. Okay.
It set us back a little bit, but then I did pitch the sponsorship aspect. Like I pitched a whole department in my workplace. I just went on FameBit and reached out to multiple brands. That's how I actually met Adam, and now we clicked since like the beginning of last year.
Nice.
Yeah, so that boosted us up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks to sponsorships, we broke even from the apocalypse.
Got it. Fighting the adcopolis, right? Never easy. You spoke about how you went out and pitched these brands. You didn't start out as a deal maker or a business person. You started off as a creator, and much like a lot of influencers, you would have had to transition from being a creative to a business person to learning business skills. And you're CMO of Most Amazing right now. So what is the learning curve like for you to go from being a creator to being a business person?
It's a very big learning curve. It's 12 years of being on YouTube, and I was really into looking for sponsorships for influencers because ever since my first ever sponsorship deal with myself and Kellogg's, I knew it was a thing that people can do. And a lot of influencers on YouTube were doing it. So I'm like, why can't we do it? I'm like, back then we had like 4 million subscribers or 3 million. I was like, we haven't had any sponsorships. Why? So I went and made this department happen. And I hired a team of people to look for sponsorship deals as well. And it has been doing pretty successful. And now I'm trying to bring on new influencers on my clientele and to look for sponsorship deals for them.
Right. So because you had seen that sponsorships could work for yourself as a person with Kellogg's, like, why can't we just try this with the brands I'm working with Most Amazing?
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
You know, you said you built out a department, you built out a team. What does the team look like at Most Amazing?
It was small. We would have different tasks, like different goals, small goals and big goals at the end of the month and end of weeks. And I would try to reach out to as many as possible to the channels because we have about 5 or 6 channels.
So you treat yourselves as a media business and as a sales operations. You're like, how do we get our brand in front of as many advertisers, as many sponsors as possible? Cool. You guys, I think this has been very fascinating, and I would very much love to go on forever, but I know we don't have infinite amounts of time. So this is perhaps a good time for us to start wrapping up. Adam, Sophia, this has been amazing. I can't wait to put this out into the world. Before we start to wrap, can you tell our listeners how they can find out more about you?
So I am on Instagram as Sophia Kid Beats, Sophia KIDDBEATZ. Sophia Kid Beats. It's my stage name. And my YouTube channel is youtube.com/rman2k. RMAN, the number 2 and K. And if there's any influencers who are looking for sponsors and want help, can email me at sophiabeatbox@gmail.com.
Excellent.
That's Sophia, SOPHIABEATBOX@gmail.com.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the show, Sophia. And Adam, tell us how people can find out about you.
Yeah. It's Adam Hadi at Twitter. Don't come in with high expectations.
Yep. Well, I've certainly learned so much from you. And in fact, we actually collaborated on a deal with Most Amazing, Sophia. And I don't know if you knew that. So I've certainly learned so much from Adam. Certainly hit him up on Twitter. And of course, Adam has a LinkedIn presence. And he's also a very frequent speaker at a lot of conferences on mobile. So if you are at a mobile conference, you guys should say hi to Adam. And I think that would be a good point for us to wrap up the show. Thank you again for being on the show, Adam. Thank you so much, Sophia. I'll let you get on with the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shamanth.
Thank you for listening to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. If any of this was helpful or instructive, I would love for you to leave us a review or rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. This podcast takes a ton of time, effort, and love to produce, and I deeply value every review and every piece of feedback that you share. Thank you for listening to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. If any of this was helpful or instructive, I would love for you to leave us a review or rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. This podcast takes a ton of time, effort, and love to produce, and I deeply value every review and every piece of feedback that you share.